Hello, everyone. It's Renee Cormier from the Fractional Referral Network. Thank you so much for coming to join our call today. We have Fernando Pucci here with us, who is a fractional sales leader who specializes in helping small businesses, startups, and scale-ups scale for growth and drive revenue. So welcome, Fernando. Really appreciate your being here today. So tell me, how did you leverage your existing network to secure your first clients as a fractional professional? Because I know that this call is filled with people today because it's not easy. If you don't have a background in sales, it's not easy to learn how to do this. And even if you do have a background in sales, if you've been fed leads your whole career, you realize there's something missing. So what have you been doing to secure your first clients, Fernando?
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Renee, and thanks everybody for joining. Um, I think, well, when it comes to leverage networking, I think the most important thing. Well, by the way, I think networking is the number one strategy to basically find your first customer. That's my opinion, and that's the experience that I had, and also talking to other fractional executives. I think the best way of doing that, in my opinion, is I think you need to define a strategy, right? So all of us here, we probably are in LinkedIn, and we probably have hundreds, if not thousands of connections, right? So the first thing I would do is literally try to find the right people to communicate that first, right? And there are a couple of ways of doing that. You can do that, use just exporting the data from LinkedIn and kind of filtering according to your ICP. But I think the best way to start is really to think about the top 10 or top 20 people that you believe it's going to be important for you to communicate in a private way, right? So these people, I believe, will be people that you have on top of your mind, right? You don't need LinkedIn, you don't need anything to base. You remember them because you worked with them in the past. So say these are the 10 people that I want to talk about my business, right? And talk about going fractional, right? Thinking about the beginning, early days of your business. So you then prepare a message, right, and say, hey, this is the reason why I'm going fractional. This is the value I can deliver, and this is the type of customers I'm going to go after. So in my opinion, the best way is to go privately one-on-one. If you can do in person, even better. If not, just set up a Zoom call like this one and have that conversation. The importance of that conversation, I think it's twofold, right? One is to get some sort of feedback, right? Maybe you're not ready to pitch, and that person is a person of trust. You kind of provide some sort of feedback. But most importantly is to identify the first opportunities, right? They will know that you were doing that. So either they will have an opportunity for you, or you can ask, and I think that's important that you ask, hey, who else can benefit from that, right? And from that, you start to create the network effect, and hopefully down the line, you'll land your first customer. So that's how I believe you can strategically use your established networking to land your first customer. I'm happy to go deep, but that's kind of a first approach to that.
So what strategies did you find most effective, like for building credibility and trust with those potential clients in the early stages of your fractional career? Because you might not realize how much you have in your pocket for credibility, but I know there are things that can be leveraged. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. In my experience, I think there are probably two main things that you can do to establish credibility without the previous experience of being a fractional. I think the simple one is, okay, try to understand what type of role you had in the corporate sector in any of your previous jobs, and try to rewrite the narrative around that particular project that you executed in a fractional with fractional terms. You can create a storytelling basically to say, well, I did that, exactly what the fractional is doing, but I did that in that context, right? So I think it's important because that will send a message that you understand clearly what you are willing to do and willing to achieve for your customers. So I think it's important that rebuild the story that you have lived before with the numbers that you have. So if you were marketing, what you achieved in a marketing activity within that organization. So maybe you grew whatever the social media presence by tenfold in 1 year. Okay, recreate that message without the corporate sector, but basically tell that you did that in a corporate sector, and it'll be even easier for you to do that without all the barriers that you have in the corporate sector. If you are a people person, maybe you scaled an organization from 30 people to 700 people globally. How you did that, how you kept the culture, what are the main KPIs that were driving you at that point in time. So that's the most, I would say, common one, and not that difficult to do. You need to put a little bit of work on that, obviously, but that's the straightforward. And the second one that it worked well for me and a couple of others that I met before is like, give it a go, maybe even for free at the beginning, right? Just to create that story, right? A good way to do that is that you're not going to probably commit with a lot of time for free, obviously. But maybe what you can do is like create a very narrow scope with a very limited time and agree with the customer that, well, number one, if we go from A to B, well, maybe you can have a contract right after that with the same customer. But worst case scenario, you can have the customer agreeing to write a testimonial for you, for example, right? So you can do the job, test your skills there, whatever, fail a little bit here and there, and potentially have your first really hot lead from that customer, or if not, at least a testimonial. So that worked very well for me at the beginning. That can be done. It was not my case, but can be done in a nonprofit organization as well. So that's the two kind of strategies I would recommend to build the initial credibility, Rene.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of doing something like that for a not-for-profit rather than a for-profit company.
Yeah.
Just because at least that, if you have to do something for free, then you're helping a good cause, so do it for something for a cause you support rather than just giving some greedy company some free work. I've never been a fan of free work personally. However, I recognize that you do have to have, sometimes just a little bit of an opportunity, and sometimes you have to create that opportunity, and it might mean having to do something very inexpensively, or sometimes even for free. But as you say, a very small scope of work, nothing major. Yeah.
And also I think, Rene, one important thing is that the way I see this type of work, I see this as a pre-sale, right? So I come from the enterprise complex tech solutions sales, right? So we used to engage with the customer multiple times to really deliver a lot of value before the customer committed and signed that agreement. So that's
Right.
the way I see it. I don't see that. Obviously, if you're talking about a 6 months commitment, then it's another thing. It's something that needs to be charged. But I'm talking about a few sessions where you have more time to show that you're capable to deliver value before they commit. It might be the case that they even are going to commit longer with you because you are capable of delivering so much value in a contained hour or a couple of hours of session. That's what I mean. I don't mean really going for full day, full scale type of engagement, because then it's going to drain a lot of your time, right?
Yes, yeah, and it's generally not appreciated, right? Then you devalue. There's a balance, right, between creating value and
Yeah,
devaluing yourself.
yeah.
So, so let's talk about personal referrals and so on, because a referral turns a lot faster than a cold lead. Um, have you had success with those?
Yes. And I think, again, coming from the enterprise world, it was always the easiest and the less costly kind of acquisition of customer, right? So obviously, that's why I mentioned at the beginning, even if you're going to do this free/free test. Um, so, okay, I can sell you this boy.
That's okay. He's a star now.
Yeah. Um, so even if you're going to do that for free, the commitment of having some sort of testimonial or referral or opening up the network of that individual is very important, right? Because again, if someone is talking about you without you, that's the most powerful thing, right?
Yes.
So obviously, you may want to have something written to put in your website or to post on your social media. But even more important than that is like having someone opening up conversations for you and talking about the good stuff that you deliver to them. Or in a case like my last customer I closed last year, it was literally like they were not deciding, and I was the one basically playing the card of the referral to say, hey, it seems to me that you were a little bit kind of uncertain about where to go. So maybe you talk to this guy because I did a similar job for them, and then you guys exchange some ideas about how it could potentially work. I have not briefed anything. I just say, hey, have a talk because you worst case scenario, get to know each other. You were two founders, and then you kind of have another relationship. And then with that, you unlock a lot of things. So definitely for me, is the best card to play. If you have one referral, I would bet on the referral against probably any other strategy, to be very honest with you.
Um, as you leverage LinkedIn, and I imagine thought leadership pieces and so on, how do you how do you how do you manage the time between creating content that drives engagement in social media and you know getting work done and trying to get the sales and servicing clients and so on? Do you find that gets a little hairy after a while?
That's a very good question, Renee. And the reason that's a good question is because I was struggling with this probably a year ago or a little bit less than that. And the reason I was struggling is because I was trying to do all the distribution channels at the same time. So I was trying to do access my network, do the outbound, position my branding, create my website, do everything, right? And essentially, like you said, I was basically with no time to develop my business and to really carry about the opportunities that matter the most, right? So the way to solve that equation for me was to really drop down on the stuff that was not supposed to work in the first place. So I was creating a website, a fancy website, right? Creating all the content, trying to put the messages and using all the AIs to craft fancy messages. But the reality is that the conversion rate of these strategies compared to accessing the network is just so different. We're talking about 10x, 20x. So I dropped everything, right? I said, you know what? I'm a one-man band show, as I believe most of us are here. Said,
Yeah.
look, I need to make the most of my time. The way I'm going to do that is, at least for now, at this stage that I was at that time, is to drop this and concentrate on the things that it seems that you were working a little bit less at the beginning, right? You're just working on that 10 that I mentioned at the beginning, the 10 contacts that you feel are very important. But the reality is that the conversion will be so amazing that in a couple of weeks, hopefully a couple of months, you're going to start to see the results in a much more interesting way. So that's how I solve it. Obviously, then when you have a little bit of traction, and the network is already working, whatever, you already spread the message. By the way, when I said that the first question, you go and tell or share the message that you were going fractional with your contacts, that's a constant and a frequent process, right? You need to tell that over time and time again, right? You need to meet that person or that kind of set of individuals a lot of times for them to understand and share what you're doing, share what's happening, share the good news, right? Share the struggles in a way that they resonate and kind of understand a little bit better. And then once that is in motion, then you can potentially look look to the outbound and say, okay, and maybe outsource that a little bit, right? Say, okay, can I do outbound? Can I create content using AI or whatever it might be, right? But I still believe that the first one is the best one to start with, and the first one to get the initial traction before you go to outbound. That's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for your natural relationships with people. You already have their trust. They already know who you are. They already know how you roll. Um, and that's the path of least resistance to getting a client is who you already know, right? So the people you've already worked with, who have you worked with that's moved on to a different company and is in a decision making or an influential role, right? And
Yeah.
working that stuff. So I'm going to open up the floor in just 1 second. So, but I want to ask what do you find are the most common mistakes that you see fractionals making, when trying to get those first clients? What are the big fails there?
Well, I think I'll come back to what I mentioned. I mentioned to you that I was speaking to this fractional chief learning officer yesterday. She's starting with the fractional right now, and I believe she is doing exactly what I did at the beginning. She's super excited with the website. She's like heavily investing time on crafting her messaging, craft her branding. And I think, honestly, I may be wrong, but I think this is a mistake at the beginning, right? I would definitely, if I had the chance to start all over again 1 year ago, I would not do anything of that. Maybe a very simple website that you can do over a Saturday morning, grabbing a coffee in like 30 minutes. Just put out there what you were thinking about, just for you to have a presence over there. But nothing more than that. You don't need professional designers. You don't need to review the content multiple times. In my opinion, you don't need to post in LinkedIn Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, like they say, minimum 3 times a week at the beginning. So I think all of that at the beginning makes you feel busy, but you're not doing business, in my opinion,
Yeah.
at the beginning, right? So in the beginning, it's all about, again, back to the first question. I would literally concentrate in the top 10, top 20 people in my network. And again, it's people that you know, as you mentioned, people that you trust. You might have worked for them, they might have worked for you, it doesn't matter. You might have been peers in the past. The most important thing is like they trust you, they think that you can do a good job on that area, whether it's legal, whether it's marketing, it doesn't matter. And then activate these channels. So that's to me the most important thing. And that was my big mistake at the beginning. And I'm still seeing this happening with other fractions, which I think I try to. So this lady yesterday, I just said, look, if I have one thing to say, just drop all of that. It's already very good, your website. Just go and try to find real customers, right?
I always tell people I offer a free 30-minute strategy session to everybody. And I always tell people that the very first thing is they really have to understand who their ideal customer is. What's the problem you're solving? And how are you better or different than everybody else? Because even if you are, talking to people you already know, if you're not speaking to their problem or to the problem you're solving, they don't know how you fit into the equation. So you have to, at the very, very least, be very clear about that first, and then do your outreach. And yes, I think a website when you're first beginning, it doesn't have to be super sexy at all, but the messaging has to be very succinct and speak to the problem that your client has, or your ideal client has, so that when they do go to your website, they say, yeah, you get me. And then everything is a conversation. And as you're speaking to your ideal customer, you're speaking to their problems, about their problems, and how you are the solution to that, how you bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to be. So there's absolutely a place for, and I agree completely on, I think that, you know, people put way too much emphasis on likes you know, likes are not, they're nice, but they're not sales. You know, these are what we call vanity metrics, right? They get you really excited. Somebody looked at my post. I've got 30 followers now, or but they're not buying. And if they're
Right.
not buying, you're not talking to, you know, like they're not either not your customer or you're, you know, and how many people out there have exactly the problem you solve anyway? You know, how many people are in any given moment of the millions of businesses out there, the number of businesses that actually have a problem that you can solve immediately it's like something like about 3% or something. It's actually a very small number. So if you wonder why your outreach doesn't resonate, it's because you got to hit people at the right time. And the notion that you can go out and just get a customer, bang, sometimes you can, but a lot of the time you can't, you know. So like finding those people who actually have the problems, you have to be very strategic about that. And I think what you're saying,
Yeah.
Fernando, it fits right in perfectly with that. Does
Yeah, I
anybody?
agree, Renee. And I think just one comment before, and I think the beauty of of selecting these top 10, I agree with you. You have to have a hypothesis about your ICP and your buyer personas and the problems that you solve, right? But these people, they are often very close to you that they can also help you to kind of evolve that, right? So they can
Yes,
provide feedback about, look, because I know you, I know you can tackle this problem a little bit better than this. So they can be the ones also helping you to kind of uh, maybe craft a little bit better the messaging, right? And maybe tailor that properly to the audience that you need. And when I say you don't need a message, I'm saying about the website and the social media. I think, like you mentioned,
yes,
everything is a conversation. So I think you need to be very well equipped to deliver the message to the right person at the right time and with the right impact that you can generate, right? So that's for sure. And I think these 10 individuals will help you to get there. After you talk to all of them, if you compare the initial hypothesis that you have and the one that you have after having these 10 conversations, you're probably going to be way, way ahead when it comes to preparation to go to after, let's say the number 11 in the list, right? Because you're going to be learning a lot.
I think if you can find those super connectors and become a super connector, then you're golden. You'll always have money, right? You know those
Yeah,
people that just
yeah,
know everybody, and they've
uh,
got it all figured out. Who's got a you know they can slot you in all kinds of places. Like I think to be one of those people, there's an art to it, but it's not an impossibility. Anyone can learn to do that, including me. And you know, it's a great position to be in if you can, you know, if you know people and you know what they need and you can plug in a problem for people, you know, and those are the people
yeah,
you want to cozy up with, you know. Um,
definitely.
Anybody have any questions for Fernando? You can just unmute yourself and shout it out. I don't think we have so many people that it's impossible.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mary.
So, Fernando, one of the things that you talked about is finding those 10, 20 people. How do you track all your information? Like, what tool do you use? Because I'm sure once you start having your conversations, you want to track key pieces of data to be able to go back. You know, like Renee, you mentioned, you know, like those super connector kind of people, like remembering who they are and what they do and all that. What do you use, Fernando?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah, I think you
Yeah,
froze a little bit. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Mary. Do you mind repeating the question? I think I got frozen. I completely lost. It was breaking.
Oh, so I asked how you track all your what tool do you use? Because there's so many different ways you can do this, but those people that you connect with, like your first group, you know, you're starting out with those 10 people. What do you use to track all your conversations? And then what are you tracking?
Yeah, that's a good question. I because I came from the world where I was always using a CRM for that, right? It was always Salesforce. It was always something there, right? So immediately when I started this, I said, okay, do I need to have a CRM, right? But again, it was a call to simplification at the end of the day. What I did at the beginning was I simply used notes, the notes from Microsoft, because I have the Microsoft package. I literally created one note per account, right? And I started to basically document all the conversations, right? Then what I did afterwards was I discovered the note taker that that joined the session here that I kicked her out, which is Alma. Alma is part of Sana AI. You have plenty of these solutions in the market. So the beauty of this one is that they create a database of the conversations you have. Most of them, at least in my case, are
You're frozen now, Fernando.
Can you guys hear me? I think I was dropped here. I don't know why.
Yeah, you got dropped again. So you were talking about using the AI note takers.
Yeah. So the AI, the beauty of this one that I use, it's called Sana AI, Mary. I can share that with you afterwards. Is that they record all the sessions, they summarize all the sessions, but they create a database of information as well. So if I met you like 3 times, I can literally go there and like ChatGPT, I can prompt and say, well, search the last conversations with Mary, tell me about what we discussed last time, but bring some context. So you can use all of that into a single system. So I found it easier. But again, in my case, I don't have like more than 10 conversations going on at one given moment, right? So maybe if you have more than that, you need a system. But I think we can start simple, to be honest, with notes and LinkedIn in some cases if you're contacting LinkedIn, and also these Sun AI. That was my case.
Yeah,
HubSpot has a free version, so you can use a tool like Zapier to move your conversations into HubSpot. So let's say I use Calendly, for example, to book an appointment. That I create a Zap using Zapier that moves that person right into HubSpot, and I use the free version because I don't have 3,000 clients, so I just use the free version. Um, Alternatively, even an Excel spreadsheet, if you're only talking about dealing with a handful of people, when it gets hairy, you can always import that to a system like HubSpot off of a CSV. But you can use those automations, that Zapier automation, to move your AI notes, move your calendar meetings, to create contacts and so on. You can also link it to your email so that you can know if you sent someone an email, you can see if they opened it or not, or if they read it, and then you can follow up accordingly. That's a nice thing. The downside of that is every time you get a piece of spam, that person becomes a contact in your HubSpot, and so your HubSpot gets cluttered with people you don't want there. So spam, your sister, people like that. So that's it's not a perfect science. So you have to regularly go through and clean it, unless someone's got a way of getting around that I'm not aware of. But there are free tools out there that help you manage things around a CRM or whatever. You don't have to spend a ton of money, but the very simplest is an Excel spreadsheet, and like Fernando says, notes. I've never even thought of using that. I was just thinking putting the notes inside the Excel spreadsheet, which gets really ugly. But yeah, but a whole file with just the notes on your Microsoft Office software is perfect, actually.
yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. And I especially like the note taker suggestion. So thank you for that.
And Zoom, if you're using Zoom meetings, you have an automatic note taker built in. So you don't necessarily have to bring in another piece of software. There's a lot within Zoom that you can record meetings. You can whether they're visually recorded or audio. It can take notes for you. By the way, it can just take notes, and so you can have a lot of things like that. They're not perfect either. You have to go through and read them again, but you'll get a good idea of what you need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Allison, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Fernando, I have a question. I'm kind of right now in the process of building my website. And I did it the way you spoke about. I reached out to people first. I'm new to the fractional space. And now as I'm building my website, I'm wondering from your perspective as a fractional, what is the most important aspect of the website? Because one of the challenges that I'm finding is explaining what fractional is and selling myself as a fractional versus a consultant or, there's a lot of, so I want to put something like that on my website, but I want to speak to it in a way that makes it easy to understand, but I don't want it to take over my whole page. And I'm wondering if there's a way to do that's meaningful.
Well, I'll let Fernando answer, but I can answer too. So, go ahead, Fernando. You have an answer? Is he still with us?
Look, yes, can you hear me? But I lost completely. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to connect over my phone. I apologize for that. Yeah, I haven't heard. I haven't listened to that. If you can just repeat that, Alison. Apologies.
Yeah, I'm in the process of building my website. And I do want to keep it simple. One of the biggest challenges I'm having is trying to explain to people what fractional is versus consulting and selling my services as a fractional rather than a consultant. And I want to put it on my website, but I also want to, so my question is kind of two-tiered. What's the most important thing that you want to put on your landing page, on your website, and how does fractional work into that in terms of how you sell yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think, well, first of all, the difference between again, fractional is a new thing, right? So you gotta educate, you gotta explain to people all the time, right? I think it's one of the things. Again, trying to make it to keep it simple. The way I try to, at least in my case, try to explain is, look, a consultant, everybody knows a consultant from McKinsey, Accenture, one of these companies, right? They come with a lot of suggestions, a lot of fancy PowerPoints, and they just say, look, this is the recommendation. This is what you need to do, right? They don't go along the way with you. They just go there for a couple of weeks and they charge a lot of money. Here's the diagnostic and what you need to do, right? So obviously, as a fractional, depending on how you operate and what area you operate, you're going to work as an employee part-time. Like I don't know, in my case, for example, I have an email from the company that I work with, which is different from the consultants. They often do not have that. I participate in the cadences of my customers because I feel it's important for me to understand what's going on with it. So I'm much more vested into the business than a consultant is. Again, that is an opportunity for all of us, right? So this for me, and also another thing that is typically very different, but it can vary depending on the engagements that you have with your customers. Like a consultant typically is like a project, right? You have a mission, let's say whatever, 3 months or 4 months to achieve whatever you want to achieve in that consultancy project. A fractional is more like an execution, although it can be strategic as well, obviously, but it's more like leading one area of the company, where it's legal, where it's marketing, where it's sales, to go from one point point A to point B. So this is oftentimes it takes more time than a consultancy project, right? You're not going to double a business in whatever, a couple of months, right? Typically going to take like 1 year or more. So that's another thing. So that's about differentiating fractional and consultancy, right? There is one I'll share with you. I did a little bit of research of this as well when I started, and I found one website, which I don't remember exactly right now, but I'll find and send it to you, where they have a description about this that I just described it to you in a very simple terms for you to probably copy if you want. And the second one about the message you wanna land on your web page, it's the second part of your question, if I understood correctly. I think this one is very connected to what Renee mentioned before, right? So what problem you are solving and to who you are solving that problem, right? So I think if you have a clear message about what is your what problems you are solving, right? If it's one or two, even better, right? You don't want to have like a menu, like a restaurant menu. You want to have like a very narrow one that you have a superpower on that, right? It's probably your USP, your unique selling point. And also to whom you do that, because sometimes it can be one problem that multiple people can have. I don't know, you have a problem that small business can have, mid-sized business can have, and enterprises can have, right? Or maybe all the industries can have. So maybe if you have the problem, the industry, and the size of the company, I would consider, and how you do that, probably this is the first thing. Okay, who I'm going to serve, what I'm going to do, and this is my superpower, and what type of customers I do that. And then share a little bit of how you do that. I will not share probably the whole thing, but I will share enough substance to say, well, I know what I'm talking about, and I have done that before. The third element would be a little bit of a proof that you have done that before. So if you have, again, the storytelling that I mentioned before, if you have done that for a corporation, or maybe someone wrote something about that job that you did in the past, you asked it for one of the 10 that I mentioned before, well, you put that proof over there as well. So then you have the whole story in probably like 2 scrolls of the page, right? What I do, to whom I serve, what's the size of the customer. Then you put a little bit of the how. This is a little bit of my process, my methodology, if you will, to deliver that value in such a short time. And then the proof, well, I have done that before, and this is the VP or the C-level kind of confirming that. That would be the ideal. But if you don't have that, a story will probably meet a lot of that and kind of make a customer feel, okay, that resonates to me. But again, bear in mind what Renee mentioned, right? A lot of people will go there, will not be the right timing, they will not be the right person. So don't be worried about that. You need to be worried about serving very well the people that you are willing to serve, and not everybody that is going to go and give a click there.
I think it's important to have an FAQ page on your website too, right? Like, so you can address, what is a fractional in that section. And you can also just speak to the fact that, and you think you alluded to this earlier, is I'm a part-time contractor with a vested interest in seeing your business get the results you've been looking for. I'm not an employee. I have an interest in what's going on here. I'm not putting in time. I'm putting in results. So speaking to in that way, I think it can be compelling and make it very clear what you're offering as a fractional.
Helpful, thank you.
Anybody else? You're a quiet lot. So are we going to call it a day, guys?
Hey, I did
Thank you very much.
Renee.
Dennis, do you want to say something?
I did want to say that Teams, if you have the team, the Microsoft Suite Teams, it has built-in note takers as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a thing now everywhere, right?
Yeah.
They're everywhere. So thank you all very much. I think, Fernando, is there anything you would like to say before we close up?
No, thank you all for joining, and I'll be more than happy to kind of speak to you individually if you think it's valuable. I'm more than happy to kind of help you in the way in capacity that I can. It'll be a pleasure. Just book some time and then we can have a chat. But thank you very much for the opportunity, Renee.
Thank you.
Excellent. Really happy that everybody came today. This has been a really great session. So thank you so much. I will have the recording ready later today and clips as well. And so Fernando will stay on the call because you wanted to talk to me about something else. So I'm going to end the call
Yeah.
now for everybody. I'm going to stop the recording and where's my little recording button? There it is. Okay. So long, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.